Sagittarius, what happens when a Sagittarius pays off their karmic debt? Sagittarius, have you ever wondered why you've carried so much weight that wasn't entirely yours? Why you've so often been the one holding everyone together? The light in the storm, the voice of hope when others lost faith, yet silently fighting battles no one ever saw. Why you've given, guided, encouraged, and carried others' dreams even while your own seemed to stay just out of reach. There is a spiritual reason behind this quiet endurance. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't coincidence. You came into this lifetime with an ancient promise, a karmic contract your soul agreed to fulfill before you were born. That is why you've walked through fire, why you've been both the teacher and the test, the healer and the wounded. You have been paying off debts accumulated not through malice, but through misuse of wisdom, the kind that comes from knowing too much and forgetting that truth must be guided by compassion. Every tear you held back, every truth you spoke that cost you comfort, every person you lifted when you were breaking, all of it counted. And now, Sagittarius, the balance is shifting. The lessons are complete. The heaviness that's been sitting on your spirit for years is preparing to lift. Because when Sagittarius finally pays off their karmic debt, the universe doesn't just free them, it anoints them. This message is your confirmation. Like, share, and subscribe if your soul feels it, because your liberation begins now. Gate 1, the weight of the wanderer. Why Sagittarius carried so much? Sagittarius, for as long as you can remember, you've been the one holding the torch in dark places. The friend who lifts spirits. The one people call when their hope is slipping. The philosopher who always seems to find meaning, even in chaos. But behind that wisdom, behind the humor and optimism, there has always been a quiet fatigue, the kind of exhaustion that no amount of rest can fix. It's not your body that's tired. It's your soul. You've carried more than your share of burdens. Family members who leaned on your strength. Friends who took your guidance but never truly saw your need. Lovers who mistook your light for endless supply. And through it all you rarely complained because deep inside you felt this strange obligation, as if helping others heal was your duty, as if you owed the world your resilience. You weren't wrong. You were fulfilling a promise you made long before this lifetime began. Sagittarius's karmic debt is ancient and specific. In past incarnations, your gift of vision, the ability to see truth from a higher plane, was immense. But like many who carried wisdom before they carried humility, there were times you used it for control rather than compassion. Perhaps you led with conviction but lacked gentleness. Perhaps you forced enlightenment on those who weren't ready. Or perhaps you believed so fiercely in your truth that you forgot every soul must find its own way home. These moments created an imbalance, not as punishment, but as unfinished lessons. And so in this life you were born with a heart that aches for justice, a conscience that won't let you turn away from suffering, and an instinct to carry others, even when your own arms tremble. This is the weight of the wanderer. A karmic backpack filled with both wisdom and responsibility. You came to learn that true guidance doesn't demand followers. It lights the path and lets others choose whether to walk it. Every time you gave more than you received, every time you forgave without apology, every time you sacrificed your own peace to protect someone else's, you weren't weak. You were balancing lifetimes of misused fire. You were transmuting the shadow of old arrogance into light through humble service. You were teaching your soul the sacred balance between knowledge and compassion, between freedom and accountability. There were moments when you felt invisible, when you poured out love, energy, and support, yet no one seemed to notice. You wondered if the universe had forgotten you. But in truth, those moments were part of your purification. They were not punishments but initiations. The universe was observing. Will Sagittarius still give when no one applauds? Will they still speak truth when no one listens? Will they still shine when there's no audience to admire the glow? Every time you answered yes, you cleared another layer of your karmic field. The loneliness you felt wasn't random. It was the isolation of the spiritual warrior, the kind who must stand alone to learn discernment. When you couldn't rely on others, you learned to rely on your higher self. When you had no one to understand you, you learned to understand the universe. When no one carried you, you discovered wings. And though those lessons were brutal, they made you sovereign in a way nothing else could. You may have noticed how people often project strength onto you, expecting you to have answers, to stay positive, to rise no matter what. They don't realize that your optimism is forged in fire. Your laughter is medicine distilled from your own pain. The world sees your light but not the ashes it was born from. You've spent years being the encourager, the fixer, the healer, not realizing that you were also the patient, the one in recovery from centuries of spiritual imbalance. Sagittarius, this karmic journey has shaped you into someone extraordinary. A soul who has learned empathy through endurance, patience through pain, and grace through giving. But the chapter of repayment is closing. The weight you've carried is almost paid in full. You've learned the humility of true strength, the peace of letting go, and the quiet power of not needing recognition for doing what's right. And soon you will notice the shift. The signs of release are already appearing in your life. You'll feel lighter, not just emotionally but physically. The exhaustion that has lingered like fog will begin to clear. People who drained you will drift away. Circumstances that once felt karmically sticky will suddenly dissolve without conflict. Doors that were shut will open easily. Because when the soul finishes its debt, the universe rearranges everything around it to match the new vibration. You were never meant to be everyone's savior. You were meant to be everyone's reminder. That freedom begins within, that truth must serve love, and that even the strongest need rest. The universe chose Sagittarius for this sacred task because you are both fire and faith, both explorer and philosopher. You can carry darkness without becoming it. You can walk through pain and still speak of hope. And that's what makes you rare. Now, as your karmic balance nears completion, the universe whispers a new lesson. You've proven your strength through service. Now prove your worth through receiving. The time of carrying others is ending. The time of being carried by grace has begun. Gate 2, the moment of release. Signs you've paid off your karmic debt. Sagittarius, there comes a point in every soul's journey where the suffering begins to make sense. The chaos quiets. The lessons start connecting like constellations in the night sky, revealing a map that was there all along. You're entering that season now. The sacred turning point when your soul begins to feel light again. The moment when the karmic weight you've carried for lifetimes finally starts to lift. It doesn't happen with fireworks. It arrives subtly, almost imperceptibly. One morning you'll wake up and notice that the heaviness in your chest, the invisible pressure that's lived there for years, has simply disappeared. You'll breathe more deeply without realizing why. The background hum of anxiety will have quieted. What once felt like endless uphill battles will begin to unfold with surprising ease. These are not coincidences. They're confirmations that your karmic ledger is closing. You'll begin to see small signs everywhere. People who drained your energy will slowly drift away, not through conflict, but through divine rearrangement. Opportunities that once required struggle will begin to flow toward you. Money, love, recognition, they'll appear without you chasing, because the universe is balancing the scales. The energy you once gave away without reciprocity is returning with interest. Every act of kindness, every silent prayer, every time you kept your integrity when bitterness would have been easier, all of it is coming back multiplied. But beyond external rewards, the deeper gift is peace. For the first time in a long time, you'll stop feeling like you have to prove yourself. You'll stop apologizing for existing, for needing rest, for not being everyone's savior. You'll begin to understand that your worth was never tied to usefulness. It was always inherent. When Sagittarius pays off their karmic debt, the universe reintroduces them to their own freedom. You'll also start to notice a shift in how people respond to you. The same energy that once attracted users and takers will now draw equals, souls who give as much as they receive. You'll recognize them instantly by how easy the connection feels. There's no proving, no fixing, no imbalance, just flow. These are the people the universe is sending to meet the healed version of you. They couldn't find you before because you were vibrating on the frequency of service. Now, you're resonating at the frequency of exchange. And while your outer world shifts, your inner world transforms in even more profound ways. You'll find yourself forgiving without effort. Not because people deserve it, but because resentment no longer fits in your energy field. You'll remember past wounds with gratitude instead of anger. You'll stop needing closure from those who hurt you, because you'll finally understand that karmic justice doesn't always come as an apology. It comes as elevation. You rise above, and in that rising the lesson is complete. Sagittarius, one of the clearest signs that your karmic debt is paid is the return of joy. Real joy. The kind that doesn't depend on outcomes or validation. You'll laugh more easily, even at yourself. You'll dance again for no reason. You'll begin to experience the world with the innocence you had as a child, but with the wisdom you've earned as a sage. It's the paradox of enlightenment, to be lighter because you've carried so much. There's another shift you'll notice. Your relationship with giving will evolve. Before, you gave compulsively, sometimes out of guilt, sometimes out of instinct, often out of habit. Now you'll give intentionally. You'll give because it feels aligned, not because it feels owed. You'll learn to say no without guilt, because you'll understand that boundaries are sacred. You'll realize that you don't have to rescue anyone. Your role is to inspire them to rescue themselves. And that revelation will free you more than anything else ever has. You'll also begin to receive, truly receive, for the first time in lifetimes. Love, opportunities, abundance, rest. The universe will start placing gifts in your path. But this time you won't push them away with modesty or disbelief. You'll accept them with grace, because you've learned that receiving is part of the balance. For centuries, your soul's lesson was to give selflessly. Now it's to receive consciously. The same generosity you extended to the world must now be extended to yourself. And as this balance returns, you'll feel a subtle hum beneath everything. The rhythm of divine order. You'll realize that nothing was random, not even the pain. Every person who hurt you was a teacher in disguise. Every disappointment was an act of redirection. Every burden was a curriculum. And now that the course is complete, you'll find yourself feeling gratitude not only for the blessings but for the hardships too. You'll look back and whisper, "It was all for this." Another unmistakable sign of karmic completion is clarity. The fog that once blurred your intuition lifts. Decisions that used to feel impossible now come effortlessly. You stop second-guessing yourself because you finally trust your own wisdom. It's as if the universe has returned your compass, and for the first time, you can see where you're going. You no longer chase purpose, you embody it. Sagittarius, you've spent lifetimes learning that power without love is corruption, and love without boundaries is self-destruction. You've now mastered the balance. The karmic scale has tipped in your favor. Your fire, once wild and consuming, has become focused and luminous. It no longer burns you, it lights your path. When you sense this transformation fully, don't rush to act. Don't try to make up for lost time. Rest. Celebrate. Breathe. You've crossed a spiritual finish line most never reach. The universe doesn't need you to sprint now, it needs you to integrate. To learn how to live not in survival, but in serenity. You've earned the right to exist without constant striving. This is the moment of release, the end of repayment, the beginning of reward. You are free, Sagittarius. Free not because someone forgave you, but because you forgave yourself. Free not because karma disappeared, but because you finally understood its purpose, to bring you back to love. Gate 3, the gifts of completion. What the universe gives after karmic freedom. Sagittarius, when the cosmic scales finally balance, the universe begins to return everything you once gave away. Only this time it comes refined, purified, and multiplied. The first gift you receive is clarity. For years you moved through fog, trusting instinct over proof, giving light without knowing if it mattered. Now the fog lifts. What was once confusing begins to arrange itself into a coherent picture. You understand why certain people left, why particular doors closed, why heartbreak had to happen exactly when it did. The pattern behind the pain reveals itself, and for the first time you feel peace rather than resentment. The second gift is ease. Where once everything felt like a test, life starts to cooperate. The opportunities you used to chase now appear unannounced. You meet people who reciprocate effortlessly, who understand your language without translation. You find yourself in the right place at the right time. Not through planning but through flow. The universe is saying, you no longer need to struggle for what already belongs to you. Then comes recognition. For so long you gave without acknowledgement, standing quietly in the background while others took credit or attention. Now you will begin to be seen, but not in the shallow way of applause or vanity. People will see the truth of who you are. They will remember your integrity in their darkest hours and return to say, "I never forgot what you did for me." This kind of recognition humbles rather than inflates you, because it comes from genuine gratitude, not ego. Another gift is abundance. This isn't only financial, though that too will shift. It's the abundance of energy, of creativity, of opportunity. Projects that once stalled begin to bloom. The talents you doubted finally bear fruit. You realize that nothing you learned was wasted. Every delay was preparation. Every disappointment was redirection. You feel the universe repaying in the only currency that matters, possibility. But perhaps the greatest gift of karmic completion is freedom from comparison. The old restlessness that once drove you to prove yourself dissolves. You stop measuring your path against others because you finally see that no two destinies are meant to look alike. The success of another no longer threatens you. It expands you. You celebrate others' victories as if they were your own because at this stage of evolution they are. Your relationships evolve too. You stop attracting those who need saving and start attracting those who want to grow beside you. Love becomes calmer, steadier, deeper. It stops being about fixing or convincing and becomes about mutual expansion. In friendship, you'll notice more reciprocity. The ones who only called when they needed you have faded, making space for souls who call just to ask how you're doing. You no longer chase connection, it meets you halfway. Spiritually, you become magnetic. Your intuition sharpens. Synchronicities multiply. The universe starts communicating through whispers, songs, numbers, feathers, dreams. You feel guided rather than tested. Your creative power returns tenfold because you're no longer leaking energy into guilt or obligation. When you speak, your words heal. When you act, life responds instantly. You realize you've become a conscious co-creator, rather than a survivor of circumstance. And then there is joy, not the temporary kind that depends on outcomes, but the quiet, constant joy that comes from alignment. It's waking up without dread. It's drinking morning light like water. It's knowing that you can handle whatever comes because nothing can pull you out of yourself anymore. This joy is not excitement. It's serenity with a pulse. You'll also notice that humility and confidence now coexist peacefully. Before, you oscillated between underestimating yourself and overcompensating. Now you simply know your value. You walk with a calm assurance that doesn't need to shout. People sense it, they trust it. Leadership follows you naturally because authenticity always commands attention without asking. Sagittarius, when the universe releases these gifts, it asks only one thing in return. Use them well. Do not fall into guilt for finally receiving. Do not sabotage your blessings by believing they're temporary. They are not rewards for good behavior. They are the natural state of balance. The moment you stop resisting goodness, it floods in. And remember, karmic freedom does not mean the end of learning. It means the end of learning through pain. From here, your lessons will come through curiosity, through creativity, through love. You'll expand not because you must, but because you want to. That is the hallmark of a liberated soul. So when miracles begin to unfold, don't look for logic. Just whisper thank you. Each moment of grace is proof that you've crossed a threshold few ever reach. The universe no longer tests your strength. It celebrates your wisdom. You've paid your dues, Sagittarius. Now the cosmos invites you to spend the rest of this lifetime discovering how beautiful freedom can feel. Gate 4: Living without debt. How to stay in karmic balance and receive with grace. Sagittarius, freedom is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of a more conscious one. Paying off karmic debt is only half the miracle. The other half is learning how to live without accumulating new ones. How to remain balanced while the world still spins in chaos. How to keep your fire pure even when the winds of temptation blow. This is the sacred art of maintaining karmic freedom. And it begins with awareness. The first principle is receiving without guilt. For so long, your soul was wired to give. It equated love with sacrifice, generosity with worth, strength with self-denial. But those patterns belong to your karmic classroom, not your liberated state. Now the universe asks you to open your palms and allow abundance to flow inward as naturally as it once flowed outward. The moment you feel unworthy of blessings, you close the energetic gate that keeps them circulating. True reciprocity is the new rhythm of your life. To receive with gratitude is not selfishness. It's participation in the divine exchange that keeps creation alive. The second principle is boundaries as love. Before, you confused boundaries with rejection. You said yes out of guilt, stayed out of obligation, and tolerated imbalance because compassion told you to. But compassion without discernment becomes martyrdom. Now you know that boundaries don't push people away. They teach them how to meet you correctly. They create sacred space where mutual respect can flourish. Every time you say no from alignment, the universe says yes to your integrity. The third principle is serving from overflow, not depletion. You are still a guide, still a light, but your giving must now come from fullness. The healed Sagittarius gives because they want to, not because they must. You inspire by example rather than exhaustion. You understand that when your own cup is full, you can pour without losing yourself. This is the quiet revolution that changes the vibration of service. It transforms duty into devotion. The fourth principle is detachment from outcome. During your karmic phase, you often tied your worth to results. You believe that goodness should guarantee reward, that effort should ensure recognition. Now you understand the deeper rhythm of divine timing. You give, act, and love not for validation but because it feels aligned in the moment. You trust that what belongs to you will return in perfect form when the energy is ready. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means serenity in uncertainty. The fifth principle is choosing presence over perfection. When you lived under karmic weight, you often chased ideals of being good enough, wise enough, strong enough to justify your existence. But the lesson of liberation is that life doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. The most sacred thing you can offer the world is your full attention. When you show up as you are, without disguise or performance, you embody truth, and truth generates no debt. Living in karmic balance also means embracing vulnerability as strength. Before, you believed you had to be the strong one, the teacher, the unshakable optimist. Now you understand that authenticity is far more powerful than invincibility. You no longer hide behind humor or philosophy when your heart aches. You allow yourself to cry, to rest, to ask for help. And in doing so, you invite others to heal through your humanity. The fire of Sagittarius no longer burns to prove, it burns to warm. As your vibration stabilizes, you'll notice that life becomes a mirror of your internal harmony. Opportunities that align with your soul's purpose will appear naturally. The people entering your life will feel like home rather than projects. You will attract calmness, not chaos, collaboration, not control. Even challenges will come as gentle nudges rather than brutal tests. The universe doesn't stop teaching you, but now it teaches with kindness because you've proven you can listen without pain. There is, however, one subtle danger: nostalgia for struggle. After lifetimes of growth through hardship, part of you may subconsciously miss the intensity. You might equate calm with stagnation. You might even start to recreate small crises just to feel alive. Be mindful of this. Peace can feel foreign at first because it lacks the adrenaline of survival, but it's the higher octave of purpose. Your next evolution is learning to thrive without turbulence. Let peace be your new adventure. And finally, Sagittarius, remember the sacred principle of gratitude as protection. Gratitude seals your energy field. It prevents the leakage of joy, the accumulation of karmic residue. When you give thanks daily, not just for blessings but for lessons, you align with divine law. You stay in the current of grace. Gratitude transforms every experience into a gift, every ending into expansion, every moment into enough. This is how you remain karmically clear. By living intentionally, loving without losing yourself, and walking gently in your own truth. You've already paid your dues. Now your task is to keep the balance, to let life love you back as fiercely as you've loved it. When you live this way, you stop creating new karmic cords. You move through the world like sunlight, touching everything, clinging to nothing. You live lighter, freer, wiser. You exist not as a soul in debt, but as a soul in dance, with the universe as your eternal partner. Conclusion: the freedom after fire. Sagittarius, take a breath. Feel the stillness that now surrounds your soul. This quiet isn't emptiness, it's peace. It's what remains after lifetimes of movement, sacrifice, striving, and proving. You've crossed the longest bridge your spirit will ever walk, from repayment to rebirth. For years you carried fire as burden. Now you carry it as blessing. The very intensity that once exhausted you has become the force that propels you forward with clarity, humility, and grace. You no longer need to hold everyone together. You no longer need to perform strength when you are tired, or smile when your heart needs silence. The karmic weight that taught you compassion has finally lifted. The storms that once followed you have calmed because you have learned to be the calm. What's left is freedom, not the wild rebellion of youth, but the deep, mature freedom that comes when the soul no longer negotiates with fear. Now your light serves differently. You lead not by effort but by example. You inspire not by instruction but by presence. You teach others that freedom is not about escape, it's about alignment. that abundance isn't what you chase. It's what flows when your heart is open and your conscience is clear. So stand tall under your own sky, Sagittarius. The universe isn't testing you anymore. It's trusting you. You have graduated from the lessons of fire to the wisdom of flame. Let your laughter return. Let joy guide you home. The road ahead doesn't demand endurance. It asks for expression. If this message resonated with the truth you've lived, like, share, and subscribe to Zodiac Wisdom. Let others who carry their own invisible debts find the courage to set them down. Because when one Sagittarius awakens, the whole horizon brightens. You are free now, and the world glows warmer because of it.